Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Solo Media, and it is finally time to talk about the brand new Amazon show from both Marvel and Sony, Spider-Noir, which is going to bring the story of Spider-Man Noir that we know from the Spider-Verse films into a, more focused live-action setting, with Nicolas Cage returning to reprise his role as, well, not Peter Parker, but Ben Reilly. And there's a few reasons as to why it's Ben Reilly, not Peter, but in a sense, and at the heart of it, it's still the same character that you guys met back in 2019 and, into the Spider-Verse. Just now we get to go into his world and see the type of things that he has going on, the villains he's fighting, and the friends that he has that you can experience both in black and white and in true hue color, whichever one you decide to choose. We actually watched it in both, and both I think are pretty viable, options when it comes to looking at the show, because black and white, perfect for Spider-Noir, true hue, the saturation with the color looks really, really good, especially with the time period that they're going for. But yeah, so this is Spider-Noir, which is, again, Nicolas Cage's Ben Reilly Peter Parker as a seasoned superhero, kind of in his own, let's say, Spider-Man No More era, where he's trying not to be a hero, but things are pulling him back into the fray. But Mike, what did you think about, we had 8 episodes here, not going into too much, but just like 8 episodes. What did you feel about Spider-Noir?
Yeah, when this show was announced, I was kind of like, all right, this is actually real. But the concept of not only like a Spider-Man TV show, but live action, that's, what comes with a lot of expectations. But then you're also playing a non-Peter Parker Spider-Man live action first time with a actor who has played this role animated. And not to say can confirm or deny that there might be some connection or whatever from those films to this show. You just have to wait and see. But Nick Cage, this character now fully getting his full story told, or at least with iteration of Ben Reilly as Spider Noir, or in this case the Spider. In this case, I thought I did a really good job in terms of creating the stylistic atmosphere of this character, and also having the full dedication of going into black and white, and also having the option of color as well. Does add another element and type of aura of this show. And some of the things of this show, the production wise, is like, you can tell that it's cheap, but it's giving off of that 1930s aesthetic and stuff, but having the black and white add to the more vintage style of this show that makes it really entertaining to watch. And also see some of different variations of characters you already know and new versions in this world of Spider-Man, but now Spider-Noir. But I thought they did a really good job here, because this definitely could have gone left field, easily. But I felt they were very dedicated, and I think the person really having Nick Cage spearhead this entire cast and this entire show on his shoulders and everything, I think he definitely delivered, and I can tell that he actually enjoy playing this character, which is good as an audience member to see this, but also as a fan. Now that you want the actor to seem like he's enjoying the role that he's playing. And also, again, even just the world of New York in the 1930s and stuff, it's just great to see. I always like period pieces and everything, so even if you're not a massive Spider-Man fan, but if you're just a period piece, a fan of person and seeing like, stories in the 1930s, but yeah, with a different twist and comic book style, this show is for you.
I definitely agree, because it's like, again, it feels like if you were to compare it to any other show that you could find, archived from the 1930s, or that represents the 1930s, during the Great Depression, as they said they are within the time frame of that show, it works. And especially in the black and white, it definitely works. And you feel like you are watching a show in that time period, just with some small, additional things that you see nowadays, like, the swinging of Spider-Man, which, say compared to the first ever time we had a Spider-Man live action show, definitely feels in the more modern sense, but still it doesn't take you out of the 1930s New York that it is establishing here. And I think that also goes for all the characters that we have here, because we got Lamorne Morris playing Robbie Robertson in this show as well, who is Ben Reilly's best friend and ex-reporter for the Daily Bugle. we all know Robbie Robertson, probably one of the most beloved Spider-Man characters, along with his son, who goes on to be Peter Parker's best friend in the main universe. But in here, it's like, investigative reporter, down on his luck, knows, Ben, and knows who he is and all that type of stuff. The type of character that got his back, but isn't afraid to call Ben out on his bullshit. And I think that Lamorne did a really good job. We also got Karen Rodriguez as Ben Reilly's secretary, Janet, who I think also, both of them really bring Ben down to earth and just be like, hey, look, we're not here to deal with your shit. We're not here to deal with your pity party. We get what you dealt with before in the past, but we're here to pull you out of it because we're not going to give up on you. And I think both of them brought out something in Ben that helped propel him to being where he should be halfway through and definitely by the end of the series. But not only that, we got plenty of friends, we got plenty of frenemies, and we got plenty of enemies. But talking about the frenemies first, we got this world's variation of Black Cat Felicia Hardy, or in this case, Cat Hardy, played by Jun Li, who you guys probably remember from the now multi-Oscar winning movie Sinners. She is playing Cat Hardy in the series, and I think that she did an incredible job of like filling that love interest role while also still very much being how Black Cat is. You want to trust them, you want to put your all into them, and that they have good in their hearts. There's just many times where they end up screwing themselves over or screwing someone else over, thinking they're doing the right thing or serving their own interest. And especially when you see why she does the things that she does and why she aligns herself with the people that she does, it makes sense. But no, I think she did a really good job in just portraying that. What'd you think about her?
Yeah, I thought Lee did a really good job. It's also seeing her in the role that I think is more loved, and in terms of what she does, but still given the essence of who Felicia Hardy, this being Cat Hardy, that version of Black Cat, that she did a really good job of playing that line between villain and hero, and kind of being a little bit of mysterious in terms of what her actual motives are. And you see all of that through this series of 8 episodes. But it highlight also just terms of the massive amount of different characters and villains that they have. I think to me was a very strong point of this show, in terms of like Sandman, Silverman, Tombstone, Megawatt, or i.e. Electro, hybrid, man spider, iteration. But I thought that they did a really good job, especially with Jack Hudson as Flint Marko, Sandman. Sandman's one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, and that's because also he's just a great character, but just how multi-dimensional he is, and not just a cookie cutter villain. And even in this iteration of Spider-Man, that you still have that element of him, of Flint Marko, who he is, which makes him one of his standout rivals of Spider-Man's, but more of like a person of circumstance and who of responsibility and burden that he has to carry, and going into the life of crime to to protect the ones he loves, or feel like he's doing the right thing, or just by obligation. But yeah, and then you also have other characters. Abraham, who plays Tombstone. Tombstone is also one of my favorite characters too, and I'm actually happy that along with this and Tombstone that we're getting in Spider-Man Brand New Day, that character is actually getting a lot more recognition, and also in the video games as well. In animation, he was in Spider-Verse as well. But I'm really happy that we're kind of getting to this age of Spider-Man expanding villains and bring them live action that we haven't really seen before these years and everything. But yeah,
not just that, also remember he was in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man season 1 as Peter's friend. So it's like Tombstone is really getting a lot of mileage lately, and I'm glad that it's like solidifying him into people's minds, along with the likes of Green Goblin and Doc Ock. He's going to be a villain that I think now for the modern age people will definitely remember, since we're probably not going to see much of like Goblin or Doc Ock and most things, because it's like we've already had our time with them. But yeah. No, I definitely agree. And also Brendan Glesson as Silvermane, who in a sense is the big villain of this season, and which is crazy because the fact that he's the only one of the villains within this show that has no powers. But I think even Megawatt said is like, just an old man trying to keep up in a time that's changing. And it's like, yeah, no, like this is the 1930s, but this is a 1930s that has the spider and now all these other villains that have extreme superpowers from things that the show, goes into how they got it. And it's like he's just somebody trying to stay in the game. And it's like he feels like a threat. He feels like a political threat. And you understand as well why he's trying to remain a threat, even though there are people that literally could just flip him out of existence if they wanted to. I think he did a really good job in like as feeling like the 1930s villain that you would expect a Silvermane in this universe to feel like. But again, speaking of which, and going back to the whole like powers and all that stuff, one of the things that a lot of comic book readers can tell you when it comes to Spider-Man Noir is that even though he is very grounded in the terms of like the time period, it doesn't stop the character from having a bunch of like crazy concepts. And I was just wondering where the show was going to go with it. Now, they did not go into extreme craziness like spider deities that Spider-Man Noir can sometimes do, but it still went into like the body horror aspect when it came to like how these villains have to navigate in a world with powers that might be killing them, or as we said, man spider. You saw him in the trailer, but the way that they utilize him, especially tying into Ben, is like it's very interesting, especially with other characters and like just trying to survive or trying to find a way to not be dying from the thing that is making them more than extraordinary. There's a lot of elements to go in here that make it work for the time while still quintessentially feeling super heroic. And I think they found a nice balance where it's like you feel like you're watching an old true crime detective show where the detective just happens to be a superhero. And also going to the action, this is definitely a Spider-Man project that the action still feels grounded while still feels spectacular, no pun intended, because it's like Spider-Man to literally be leaping across buildings and lifting up cars and having the strength to hold up an entire building in one of the most iconic shots. And while this Spider-Man definitely has that, he's still an older character, like again probably around the same age Nicolas Cage is actually in real life, but it's like he's seasoned. He's not as young as he used to be. He can't do everything. Sometimes even after doing that, he has to like crack his back or like readjust stuff. And while maybe that might be a hindrance for some, I think that it works in the case of like just understanding, again, not just the time period, but just where Ben Reilly, Spider-Noir, or the Spider is at this current moment in time.
Yeah, I personally because I also another thing for this being a Spider-Man live action show, a lot of people go like, how is this going to go on having a live action Spider-Man on television? We always want to see Spider-Man pop up in a Marvel Disney Plus show or something in canon, whatever. But with this, they did a good job of balancing visual effects. Again, you have to understand this is by Prime Video, not Disney or other studios that probably might have a different size budget or quality how they will shoot certain action scenes. But for what it's worth, they do a good job of playing with that of the environment in the 1930s, but at the same time still feeling like Spider-Man. Like the opening of the show, you see him swinging across buildings and everything. You see shots in the trailer, and it's actually phenomenal to see that, but in a different setting. I'm like, okay, this is not animated, this is a live action Spider-Man, but a variant, swinging across buildings and everything. And then we're seeing all these different villains of Sandman, Electro, a Tombstone, and other people, and Man Spider. There are a lot of practical effects that get added onto this. And this show, I think, that adds to the aesthetic of the 1930s. That I think, again, it will create that element of the environment, but also, yes, some things, quote unquote, that looks cheap or looks like vintage. Well, I think that's intentional, not for the sake of budget, because again, this is Spider-Man. The IP is so valuable that you want to make sure you're giving it with enough respect. And I think they did a good job with the costumes, the setting, but really with certain action scenes that were scenes are paced throughout this season, is that they did a good job in terms of allowing the action scenes to play out and visual effects to add into also the personality of Nick Cage and his portrayal as Ben Reilly, but also the fact, yes, we know he's an older man, but you still get a lot of great action scenes as the Spider in this show.
Again, I think if anyone has any gripes, it's like, again, this is a Spider-Man for TV, which we have in live action, which we have not had in a very long time. Like, this is not the first time they've done it. This is not the Japanese Spider-Man when they tried doing it. This is modern day, but it's like, again, unlike it being from Disney or from Sony, while this is still Sony, this is Amazon. And we know Amazon to have a good budget when it comes to, say, like things like The Boys, for example. And Spider-Man, as we said, huge IP. But again, if some people are like, oh, this maybe looks a little plasticky, depending on what color, you decide to see the show, it's like, understand it's most likely just to match the aesthetic of like 1930s, because they could have gone all out to something that's maybe close-ish to the movies. Like, you compare this to the footage we've seen so far of Spider-Man Brand New Day, it's like, yes, there's a difference, but they're still Spider-Man, and you can still appreciate what both are trying to do. Now, again, this is 8 episodes. However you decide to watch it is up to you guys. I'd say either black and white or color. I'd say, go with whatever you feel like is right. If you want to watch it 2 times, back to back within black, white, and color, like kind of like how we did, I'd say go for that as well. I think just personally, when it comes to this show, if you're looking for a different Spider-Man experience, this is definitely one that I can recommend. Maybe it might not be for everybody, and there may be some things, especially if you're not someone that wants to sit through period pieces, maybe you might not fully enjoy it, but I think just at least to appreciate what the cast did, the music, especially that opening sequence, which has been stuck in my head ever since the first time I watched the first episode. Like, there's just so many things to appreciate about this. I don't think it's going to be for everybody, but I think it is a really good entry into the lineage of Spider-Man shows / just projects in general and live action and animated wise that we have gotten. I think Nicolas Cage has definitely solidified himself as, Spider-Noir or Spider-Man Noir, being Ben Reilly or Peter Parker, which again, the only reason for that is because, contracts, Peter Parker can't be seen drinking or smoking, but it's still the same character.
Yes.
But I think he has definitely solidified himself as just like, he knows Spider-Man Noir like the back of his hand. He knows what to do to evolve this character, and I think in his hands, and especially with what I've seen in the show, I think we're gonna have a good time when it comes to this. Could this potentially get a season 2? Maybe. They said maybe this is technically a season 1, so who knows? If it does successful, we'll see. I think it deserves it, because there are a lot of characters to like, a lot of characters to hate, a lot of aesthetic choices that you're going to enjoy here, a lot of takes on the Spider-Man mythos or even the Spider-Man Noir mythos that get rearranged or blatantly just called out as they are. So yeah, is Spider-Noir worth it? I think definitely so, but that's up for you to decide. But again, this will all be out on Prime Video on May 27th. All 8 episodes dropping initially, so hope you guys enjoy. And again, we got a lot of coverage coming CinemaCon wise, Mandalorian and Grogu, which will probably be out by the time this video comes out. Many trailers. The Lanterns trailer will also be out soon, so there's just a lot of stuff we got upcoming in the pipeline. Video essays will be back now. The Boys should be over, so we got a lot coming. But make sure you stay tuned. Click the subscribe button, comment, like, and share, and we will see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Peace.